Did you know that about 89% of the variability in instructor ratings can be explained by the motivational climate in a class? And 93% of course rating can be explained by the motivational climate. When we added gender, race, class size, and ease of class, we explained almost 100% of these ratings. We published these results in a top-rated educational journal. Now you may be wondering, what is motivational climate? And how do you measure it? Well, the motivational climate of a course refers to aspects of the psychological environment that affect students' motivation and engagement within a course. The motivational climate is comprised of 5 factors that comprise the music model of motivation: empowerment, usefulness, success, interest, and caring. For empowerment, students feel empowered by having the ability to make decisions about their learning. For usefulness, students understand why what they're learning is useful for their goals in life. For success, students believe that they can succeed if they put forth the effort. For interest, students are interested in and enjoy the content and instructional activities. And for caring, students believe that others in the learning environment care about their learning and about them as a person. Now that I've explained motivational climate, I want to tell you about a study I did with 2 of my colleagues, Dr. Topaz and Dr. Shabazz. For our study, we created an online simulator that can predict instructor and course ratings based on the motivational climate in the course. We used the same data set that was used in this study that was published in AERA Open. First, I'll tell you about the data set, and then I'll explain the simulator. The data set included 2,938 undergraduate students from 30 classes at a large public university. 54% self-identified as male, 46% as female, and 0.5% as another gender. Their self-identified racial ethnic identities are shown here, along with the percentage of students by year. Students were surveyed in 30 courses, including courses related to art, biology, communications, economics, engineering, history, human development, and physics, among others. Of the 30 courses, there were 9 small-sized courses, 10 medium-sized courses, and 11 large-sized courses. So there was a nice distribution of course sizes. All of the students completed a survey that asked them about their class perceptions. The survey included these 31 items that I'll tell you about now. The motivational climate was assessed using the Music Model of Academic Motivation Inventory, which is available for free at the Music Model website in this user guide. This inventory asks students to rate items on a 6-point scale, from strongly disagree to strongly agree. The empowerment scale is comprised of 5 items that are averaged to get an empowerment scale score. An example item is, I have the freedom to complete the coursework my own way. The usefulness scale is also comprised of 5 items, and an example item is, in general, the coursework is useful to me. The success scale is comprised of 4 items, and an example item is, I'm confident that I can succeed in the coursework. The interest scale includes 6 items, one of which is, the coursework is interesting to me. And finally, the caring scale is comprised of 6 items, and an example item is, the instructor cares about how well I do in this course. The items on each of these scales is then averaged to obtain a scale score for each student, which can then be averaged to obtain a class scale score. For example, here we see that caring was rated the highest at 5.2. 3 other scales were also included on the survey: ease of course, overall instructor rating, and overall course rating. The ease of course scale was comprised of 3 items. An example item is, this course is very easy for me. Instructor rating was assessed with this item that read, my overall rating of the instructor for this course, and then students rated it on a 6-point scale from terrible to excellent. Similarly, they rated course rating on the item, my overall rating of the course, and used the same 6-point Likert scale. So to summarize, students completed these 31 items on an online survey that they completed related to the course they were taking. Using these data, my colleague Dr. Topaz created an online simulator using Bayesian belief networks. I don't have time to get into the details of the development here, but basically this simulator allows you to predict instructor and course ratings based on the motivational climate in a class. The simulator allows the user to set up the conditions that lead to this prediction. Here you see the simulator that Dr. Topaz created. It allows you to change the values for each of these variables to see how these changes are related to instructor rating. The 5 music model components that measure the motivational climate are shown here on the left. Ease of course and size of the class are shown here in the middle. And the student demographic variables are provided here at the bottom. The instructor rating is shown on the right in 3 different ways. The top 2 show that the rating is 5.19, and the bottom one shows the percentage of students who answered a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Now let me show you how it works. When you go to the simulator online, you'll see that it's set to the default settings over here. They're the average scores that instructors receive on the music and ease scales. Here you can see that the average instructor rating is 5.2 by going over here to the right side. 5.2 here, and this is the same scale, it's just shown a little bit differently. You can change any one of these variables by moving the sliders to a different value. So for example, I can decrease the interest score by 1 point. If I want to go from its current setting of 4.4 to 3.4, I just click on the slider here and take it down to from 4.4 to 3.4, just about there. And you can see now what happens over here. Our instructor rating went from 5.2 to 4.6. And so I can also change any of these other scales to see how it changes the instructor rating. So for example, I could change usefulness from currently 4.1 basically, and I could lower it to whatever I wanted to, 2.1 if I wanted to go down that low. And you could see what the effect is over here on the right, that it drops the instructor rating to 4.2. And same thing if I were to increase it all the way up to about 5.7, then all of a sudden I go back up to about 5.2 to where I was before when interest was higher. So this shows me that I could either increase interest or increase usefulness to be able to get a score of an instructor rating of 5.2. So you can play around with it and see which different combinations of the motivational climate, such as that's evidenced by empowerment, usefulness, success, interest, and caring, and see the effect over here on the right-hand side. You can also look down here at the frequencies and see how they change from students who rate it a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. What else can I show you? You can also select a subset of the population. So for example, if I only wanted to use it for small classes, you wanted to see what the small classes look like, you could click here on small, and this would give you the sample. Now for small classes only, they would actually rate it lower. It's down to a 4.35. If I click that back off again and we look at all of them, we're up to a 4.42. So not a big difference, but small classes in this case tend to get rated a little bit lower. We could do the same thing if we just looked at large classes. We could go from a 4.2 to a 4.4. And again, that's with these other settings. So if I change these other settings, that may be slightly different if I were to move caring down and so forth. You can do the same thing with year. So if I wanted to look at large classes, I already have that selected. With people in the first year, I wanted to look at females and Asians, and then you can look over here and you see you're at a 3.9. So anyway, these different options allow you to play around and see what happens when you change things. And we have another one of these simulators for course ratings as well. I'm not going to show you that because it works exactly the same, but the outcome variable over here on the right hand side is course rating instead of instructor rating. Now remember, Dr. Topaz created this using a machine learning approach, and that was based on the student surveys I told you about before. So if you have classes or students who are different from these, you may obtain different results. That's why we need to keep adding data to the system. But this is a great first start, and I think it's a really cool project to be involved with. Using the simulator, we plotted the instructor ratings for each different value of caring, and we got a nonlinear relationship that looks like this. This shows us that the increase in instructor rating is greater for every unit increase in caring at the upper end of the caring scale. When we plot all of the lines, we get something that looks like this. These findings tell us a few things. First, instructor rating increases as students' perceptions of the motivational climate increase. That's consistent with the music model theory. Second, the relationships between motivational climate and instructor rating appear to be mostly nonlinear. Third, increases in interest are associated with a larger increase in instructor rating than the other motivational climate variables. And you can see that here because the line is steeper. And fourth, ease of course is not very related to instructor rating. The line is mostly flat. All of these findings are similar when we look at course rating, as shown here. Another way to examine these data are through bubble charts. The size of the bubbles shows how much of an effect that each variable has on instructor rating. So the larger the bubble, the more the variable predicts instructor rating. As you can see, the biggest predictors are the music components, which means that the motivational climate really affects instructor ratings. You'll also notice the ease of course and class size are not very associated with instructor rating because their bubbles are very small. Faculty will often comment that some instructors get higher ratings because their course is easy. But that's not what we found in our study. We've also heard people say that faculty get lower ratings because they teach larger courses. But that's not what we found either. A similar pattern was found for course rating. So while all of these variables may be related to instructor and course ratings, the music components are the ones that have the largest relationships with these ratings. The implications of these findings are that instructors who want to increase their instructor and course ratings should try to increase students' perceptions of the motivational climate through the music model. Although our study was not experimental, and we cannot make causal claims based on these results alone, based on other studies, it's reasonable to suspect that increasing students' music perceptions would lead to increases in instructor and course ratings. Instructors can survey students in their classes and then focus on the lowest rated music components. For example, here the instructor could select some strategies to increase students' perceptions of empowerment and interest. Here are a few example strategies that could be used. I have over 100 strategies in my free book and provide more explanations at my website and YouTube channel. Thanks for joining me today, and good luck in creating a motivational climate that will engage your students.